every
Right.
egg that is laid, every fertilized egg that is laid could turn into either a worker bee or a queen bee. A worker bee is just an undeveloped female, an undeveloped queen, essentially. So what the bees do when they want to raise a queen is they take one of those little bitty tiny larvae that just hatched out of her egg, and they feed it pure royal jelly, is what it's called. And royal jelly is a substance, a feed that is secreted from a bee's gland in her head. And so they feed this little larva pure royal jelly, and being fed that turns it into a queen bee.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Deep MCs, the podcast that seeks to push meaningful conversation to a whole new level. Whether it's for your entertainment or your personal growth, we appreciate you being here today. And now, on to the show. What's going on, Deep MC fans? We are back for another one. I'm riding solo on this one, but I did bring a very special guest for you guys today. Blake Shook from Desert Creek Honey. Blake, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine, man. During this process of podcasting, it used to be very regimented, but then I decided, you know what? I just kind of want to talk to people I'm interested in, talk to people that do things that I enjoy. And this has been a hard one, man. I've been trying to actually get you on the show for some time. I feel like my emails were getting lost somewhere. So to be able to have you here today, man, I'm super excited, man. So thank you for making the time on a Saturday at that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
The real reason why I wanted to get you on, man, normally we specialize in meaningful conversations, right? But also we try to educate the listeners as well. And one of these things that I think is I don't want to say a misunderstood, I would almost say that it's not preached enough, is the importance of your role, right? When I talk to people about honey, or I just say, hey, I enjoy this honey or whatever it may be, a lot of people look at, oh, the bee farmers, they just get honey and they put it in a bottle and they sell it. But no, like bee farming, like without you guys, we don't eat, pretty much is what it boils down to, right? So,
Right.
I mean, how for someone like you, how did you even get into bee farming? I guess let's start there.
Yeah, no, and you're so insightful to bring up some of those things you just brought up, and the general public is often quite aware that bees are important, but they
Right.
often don't make the link between the importance of bees and actually eating honey, because without consumers buying honey, beekeepers wouldn't be able to stay in business. And we pollinate 1 out of every 3 bites of food, and
Right.
indirectly 2 out of every 3 bites of food. And so absolutely critical. But you asked about how I got started. I'm sure we'll get into the importance of bees later.
For
But
sure.
yeah, for me, it was a high school hobby. I was 12 years old, and I wanted to be, of all things, I was convinced I wanted to be a chicken farmer. I wanted to raise chickens for a living. I don't know why. Don't. I have no idea why I wanted to do that, but I was very passionate about it. And I convinced my parents I was going to start a chicken farm in their backyard. And I
Okay.
think they were like, "Oh no, we've got to get this kid on to anything else." And
Yeah.
so they started cycling me through other hobbies, sports, and and yeah, none of it really fit. And then they said, "Hey, there's this youth program that's trying to get kids involved in beekeeping in our local town," and they signed me up, and I won this scholarship that gave me a free beehive and beekeeping classes, and I just totally fell in love with it. There's nothing more incredible as a hobby than beekeeping. Just it's so intricate, so detailed, so fascinating. And so I took that, got that scholarship when I was 12, and took the classes and just truly fell in love. And all of a sudden, local health food stores and feed stores were calling saying, "Hey, I heard you're a beekeeper. Can you sell us honey?" And so I started selling them honey, and all of a sudden it was a business. And so I grew the business through high school, and sold to more and more grocery stores, grew more and more beehives. until by the time I graduated high school, it was a full-time business, and I moved into it right out of high school. I'm not sure if my parents would have preferred a bee farm in their backyard or a chicken farm, but they got a bee farm, and so they were
It's
probably
awesome.
a little relieved when I grew up and moved out with all my bees. But yeah,
Hey,
here we are.
no, that's awesome, man. And God, I have so many questions for you. But for me, my grandfather actually had bees on his property, right? So I was always fascinated by bees.
Oh,
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to pursue, and the reasons why is one of the few times I was out in the backyard, I actually I don't know what you call it. There was a hive in a tree. They like like a
mm-hmm.
free form large, whatever, right?
A
Um,
swarm.
Swarm, there you go.
Yeah.
Some of my cousins thought it'd be funny to throw a rock and disturb the
Right.
swarm. Well,
Uh-huh.
I ended up getting stung in the right eye, and
Oh,
closed the whole side of the face, swole up, down,
oh
neck started
no.
closing up, and it put me down for quite some time. So I found
Oh
out very
no.
fast that me and bee stings, or honeybee stings, if you want to call them, don't get along, right? But I always was just drawn to them, right? One of the things I noticed, is completely just sidetrack topic. Uh, you seem like a very calm, relaxed guy. Is that part of every beekeeper I talk to? They're always kind of like very zen. Is that just part of the process, or is that just who you? I'm just lucking out and finding these
Well,
guys that are just super calm.
it depends, but I think you kind of learn to be pretty chill under intense circumstances when you work with millions of stinging insects for a living.
Right.
You got to be able to be super calm, and now we are beekeepers on a commercial level, and so we operate thousands and thousands of beehives, and there are dozens of situations throughout the year where you're surrounded by tens of thousands of swarming stinging insects, and you just have to calmly go about your day. And so yeah, maybe that's part of the contributing factor, and maybe it's just hey, enough years of running a small business and you've got to chill out or you'll have a heart attack.
You have a
I
heart
don't
attack.
know
Yeah,
which.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. I mean, you say small businessman, but it looks like you're doing very well for yourself. I actually enjoy your product, and I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about it because, again, like I like bees, but because I can't be around them, I don't dive too far into the world of, right.
Sure.
Um, but one of the things that I know that people are gonna look at me really weird, right? But like I get this right here, right? So the jug for everybody out there that can see, the 1 gallon jug, right? It's funny when we talk about this product. So for me, really, and I don't know how tight knit the bee community is, right? I don't know if it's like welders where every welder knows each other or whatever. So I'm sorry if I offend your friend or whatever, but I used to buy Nature Nates, right? To me, that was one of
Right.
the better honeys that was out there. And I don't know what they did or what they changed or what happened. Nature Nate's now is shit. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nate, wherever you are, it's shit. and, and so I was like, well, what can I buy that's local? Because I do want to support local because we are here in Texas. And I just started looking for a product and I stumbled across yours, Desert Creek, right? Just out of the blue. And I want to say like my first order was something small because I just wanted to see, what it was all about. I ordered like a small honey. You have like a cinnamon honey like
Creamed
spread.
honey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cream honey. And a couple other things. I don't know. You probably have my order history better than I do, but I ordered a few things. And when I first tried it, I was like, holy shit, like this is incredible. Like, I don't know if he put crack in here or whatever it is, but to me, and I could just be making this up in my head, like there's more floral notes in there. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's incredible. And I told everybody, I'm like, what are you using right there? Like, no, that's shit. You have to try this. Like, you have to. It's amazing. And everybody that I've given it to or sampled out has really enjoyed the product, right? But like, what is it that you do? I mean, or don't do, or that makes it taste so much different? I know region has something to
Yeah.
do with it,
Yeah.
but why is it
Yeah.
so different?
Totally. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being a customer. I mean, we really, really appreciate you, and everyone that buys from us like you do. I mean, we couldn't be in business without it. And so
For
we
sure.
really appreciate you reaching out and intentionally supporting small businesses, because that's,
Looks
there's
like we
lots of
lost you
great
for a
ones.
second.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
There's lots of great ones out there, but we do things a little bit differently than most. And so we're actually extremely, extremely rare in our industry because we are actually a beekeeping company and we raise all the honeybees. We harvest all the honey out of the honeycomb. We package it into bottles and we take it all the way to the customer.
Right.
So the vast majority of honey companies out there are just honey packing companies. So they're buying barrels of honey from all over the world, oftentimes. They're blending it all together and putting it in a bottle. And so you're kind of getting this mishmash of all different types of honey from all over the world. You know, the US consumes 650 million pounds of honey a year. Only 150 million pounds are produced in the United States. So the vast majority of honey packaged is from overseas. So, and of that, you know, almost none of them are actual beekeepers. So we're actually a beekeeping company. And so we're taking
Right.
that honey straight from our beehives to the bottle to the consumer. And it's a lot of what we're not doing. You know, we're not blending it with honey from all over the country. And that gives it that really unique, rich floral taste that's actually pretty rare to find these days.
No, 100%. Like I would like to say I'm a honey connoisseur, man. I've
Yeah,
tried
me
honey
too.
from
Yeah.
everywhere, and I can't get away from. Like I said, the one thing, right? I'm gonna criticize your company here, so please don't hate me, right?
Hey,
But
it's more
so
helpful than compliments. It's okay.
I buy, and this is a gallon jug, and any of my friends that come over, they always say, "Why do you have these gallons of honey on your counter?" I would say I probably go through a a gallon of honey maybe every 3 weeks by myself, right? And I honestly probably would do a lot more, which I don't know if that's good for me. I don't know. We could talk about that in a minute, but I would buy the 5 gallon buckets if I could, but I don't have any way to get from the 5 gallon to something. I can't put a 5 gallon bucket on. Or if you made a 5 gallon bucket with a spigot,
Mm,
I'd be all over
mm,
that. But
mm.
it stops me from buying it, right? And then, I mean, not saying I'm not going to still buy, but I wish I could get more at one time, because you do see small intricacies between the batches, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, if you could get like a funnel or something so
Hey,
you
I
can
love
refill
that. I will.
the 1 gallons, I'd be all
You
about it,
bet.
man.
Hey, man, I will put that towards our product team. We'll do some research.
Yeah,
I
no, I
love that.
know for sure. But it's like I said, going back to it, man, like it's just amazing. But what I did want to ask you too, and because I have a lot of questions, and I'm more fanboying out here, right? So please, just kind of bear with the sporadic of everything.
Love it. No, you're great.
Um, there is a show on Hulu. I don't know if you see the Beezar guy, right? He's
Yes.
here
Uh huh.
in Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with him at
I
all,
am.
or if you know him, right? The
Yes,
crazy guy. I guess he makes for good TV.
he does. He does.
One of the things, and I don't know if he's really a beekeeper or he's just pretending. I mean, he seems to kind of know what he's talking about, but has an interesting way to go about it, right? We're not here to promote him, but I was looking at some of his uh, product as he would take it around or show it, whatever, right? And what you have here, your product has a very dark, rich color, right? Some of his
Hmm.
stuff looked very foggy,
Hmm.
not very clear, and you know you have unfiltered on here. He's claiming unfiltered as well. uh
Hmm.
what is the difference, right? Why does it come like that? I mean, I know also I buy your creamed honey. I usually
Right.
eat a spoon in the morning, right? Obviously this is very
Hmm.
much different than this.
Right.
you know I guess it's a double question. What's the difference between the cream honey and this honey here,
Right.
and why does his
Right.
look so different than
Yeah.
yours when it's in liquid form?
You bet. Great question. Yeah. So, the cool thing about honey is that, there's over, 120 different varieties just in the United States. And so every type of flower produces a different color, a different taste, a different consistency of honey. So there's extreme variation out there. Now, honey naturally granulates or turns to a solid over time.
Right.
And so depending on how old the honey is, it gets more and more solid with time. Like with a creamed honey, the ones that we sell, we actually expedite that process. So we take liquid honey, 90% liquid honey, and mix it with 10% previously creamed or granulated honey and chill it and that kind of rapidly creates this smooth, spreadable honey. So it's spreadable instead of liquid if you don't like the drips. And it kind of has a slightly different taste because it's a different consistency. The
Right.
liquid honey, is still in its liquid form. And over time, it's going to get foggy and cloudy. Now, the bees I'm not super familiar with, I know him, I'm not super familiar with his products. I'm not exactly sure why his is the way he is. It is, but for us, we keep it the liquid honey, and then we make the creamed honey for those that want it spreadable.
Right. Okay. I mean, that makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting to see. I don't know his product very much either. Nor will I, because like I said, I'm hooked in with you guys. So,
Perfect. Glad to hear it.
it is what it is at this point. But
Yeah.
I was always
Yeah.
just been curious. I know the people listening would also want to know, because it's unfortunate that the majority of the people that are listening, or the people that are out there buying honey, are consuming what's in the bear, what's in the
Yeah.
bear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's so far from what it
Yeah.
really is. Yeah. And so it's good
Yeah.
to know and have that education. But talking about the different types of honey that is here, and going back into kind of the care of the bees as well. I know recently, well, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know how you feel about it, but it kind of pissed me off, right? Is there was an instance where we lost a lot of bees. They were trapped in
Mm.
the plane. It was the plane or the
Yeah.
train? Plane
Yeah.
or train, yeah.
The plane. It
The
was a
plane,
plane.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that didn't sit right with me, and that's kind of a frustrating thing, right? And it pissed me off, and I was having a conversation with some people about it, and they're like, dude, like why do you care so much? They're fucking bees, bro. Like, let it go.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
like you genuinely don't understand the importance that's here. It also, and I don't know if you do this with your bees as well, but I know, like, at one point, especially a few years back, we lost a lot of bees due to the fact that we were transporting them across country to pollinate, right? I know that a lot of people send a lot of bees to California for the almonds and
Right.
things of
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
nature. But that's also not necessarily always the healthiest thing for the bees, or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not the expert, right? You are. So I was hoping you could kind of just shed some insight on these things, or why we transport how we do. Is that healthy? Is it not healthy? Maybe kill some of these
Yeah.
misconceptions that's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Such a great question. So, bees are more important than they've ever been. And our annual loss rate across the country is at 44% per year right now. So
Wow.
44% of the beehives, of the managed beehives, are dying every year. You go
Right.
back 20 or 30 years, and that was like, 10, 15% tops. And it gets worse every single year. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Environmental, California and the West Coast is incredibly dry right now. That makes it hard to keep bees. Parts of the East Coast are incredibly wet right now, and that makes it hard to keep bees. Then you've got, everybody sprays their yards with pesticides. Every farmer is spraying his fields. You've got urban areas exploding in growth that are removing forage for bees. You've got more and more clean forage for bees being turned into farmland. And so it's just kind of a terrible situation for bees. They're kind of being attacked on all fronts. And
Right.
you're seeing it in other pollinators too. I mean, you're seeing it in, the butterflies, you're seeing it in the small birds, you're seeing it in bats, you're seeing it in amphibians, where, there is a very measurable decline in all of those species. And it's kind of scary. So bees in some ways are kind of the canary in the coal mine when it comes to future issues that we're looking at. So as far as what we can do as beekeepers, it's all about how bees are managed and cared for. And, I've been a part of the beekeeping industry for 20 years now. I know, of almost everybody. It's a very small industry. We all know each other. And beekeepers tend to be the most passionate advocates of bee health of anybody, every single one of them. Number one, because if their bees die, they go out of business. But number
Sure.
two, beekeeping is incredibly difficult. It's an art form, and it takes an insane amount of work. And I've never met someone that can do it on a commercial scale that isn't passionately in love with bees. It's just too
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get out of it otherwise. So, things like transporting bees, it's how you do it that really matters. The bees that died on the plane, it wasn't the beekeeper's fault. It was, the transportation company's fault that
Right.
happened. As beekeepers, moving our bees, we move our bees occasionally in my operation, and sometimes it's healthier to move our bees because, for example, we produce a lot of honey in Texas, and Texas is a great place for bees up until about the 4th of July. And the 4th of July, it is brutal in Texas. It is hot. It is
Yeah.
dry. The flowers all die. And our bees need that food source. And so if we leave our bees in Texas throughout that brutal summer, a ton of them are going to die. And so instead, we pick up our bees and we move them up to the Midwest during the summer where it's 75 degrees. There's wildflowers everywhere and it's perfect conditions for our bees, and they're healthier up there. Kind of like moving cows. I mean, you wouldn't leave livestock in a burned up field with no water or food.
Right. Right.
You'd move them. And so we do the same thing with the bees. So if you have the bees' health in mind and you're doing it carefully, it's actually way better to move them than to leave them in one place.
That's crazy, man. I
Yeah.
would never have thought of that. I guess because, right, like growing up, the beehives that we had in my grandma, they never moved. They were always just
Right.
there. So
Right.
in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
perception, right, you're thinking it's always they just sit there and that's just kind of what they do. But I never
Yeah.
thought about moving them for their health purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, man.
It
That's
is.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So I guess like you talked about uh having to be passionate, right? Because it's a lot of work. And I know there's a lot of people that think, oh, hey, I'll just get a beehive. I'll throw it in my
Yeah.
backyard and then it's
Yeah.
going to show up. Like, what for
Yeah.
you? I mean, it's probably has changed over the course of time as your business grows, but what does a day in the life look like for you when it comes to caring for these bees?
Yeah, great question. And lots of people are doing it as a hobby. I mean, it's an exploding hobby. And it's not a lot of work if you have a couple beehives in your backyard. And we actually even have a sister company we have a store in the Dallas area, the Houston area, and we're opening one in the Austin area
You have a
called
store
Texas.
in the Houston area?
Yeah, yeah, it's called Texas Bee Supply. And we get people into beekeeping. So we like sell the bees, we train people, we have all the gear, a cool store to come visit. And so we have, we help people get into beekeeping on a hobby level. On a commercial level, it's a whole nother world. You have to be incredibly timely when you do everything, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the conditions are. A good example is, if we have to, when our bees are producing honey and bringing a lot of honey, extra honey in that we would harvest, you have to keep adding these boxes to your beehives, kind of like the boxes you see behind me.
Right.
Once beehives fill up one of their boxes, you've got to add another one so they keep putting honey in. If you're a week late, you might miss the whole honey crop. You might miss 40 or 50 pounds of honey. So you've got to be right on time early. If your beehive needs a new queen bee, let's say your queen bee is failing because she's getting too old, if you don't get them replaced right on time, then that hive will die. And there's 100 other scenarios like that to where you have to be on the ball all the time, every time, precisely at the perfect time, or your beehive will die. And that's why we have a 44% loss rate, because it's really, really tough to keep these things alive on a large scale. So, you have to be incredibly persistent, right on time, every time, in everything you do, or you can't survive as a business.
Got you. That makes sense, man. And I didn't know that you had a store here in Houston. I have to check
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, totally.
Go see what it's all about. Yeah,
You bet.
we'll link down in the description for that as well for anybody that wants
Cool.
to check that out. You talk about the queen process just now too. Like how does that work? I know that you do sell queens and stuff like that. And I mean, where are you getting them from? How does that work? Why is there only one per hive?
Right.
Like
Right.
the whole process is interesting to me, but I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you can go
The
into that, would be great.
cool. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. The cool thing about queens is, she is the only queen. There's only one queen in the hive. If there's two, they'll fight until one dies. They'll fight to the death. So they're very territorial, let's say.
Okay.
And but she'll lay up to 2,000 eggs per day. So she'll lay her body weight in eggs per day, and there'll be up to 80,000 bees in a beehive. And she's the mother of them all. Yeah. And so a worker bee only lives about 6 to 8 weeks in the summer months, and up to 6 months during the winter. But so she'll lay 2,000 eggs a day. but she'll only, she usually only is very productive for 1 to 2 years. So when she's no longer productive, we as a beekeeper either have to remove her and put a new queen in, or the bees will raise their own queen. Now, she's often not quite as good a quality if they raise her, but to raise a queen, it's very complicated, but it's simple to explain. Every
Right.
egg that is laid, every fertilized egg that is laid could turn into either a worker bee or a queen bee. A worker bee is just an undeveloped female, an undeveloped queen, essentially. So what the bees do when they want to raise a queen is they take one of those little bitty tiny larvae that just hatched out of her egg, and they feed it pure royal jelly, is what it's called. And royal jelly is a substance, a feed that is secreted from a bee's gland in her head. And so they feed this little larva pure royal jelly, and being fed that turns it into a queen bee. Worker bees, they feed them a mixture of honey, pollen, and royal jelly all together, and it turns it into a worker bee. So they just feed it a different diet, and it develops into a queen bee instead.
You you kind of blew my mind here, man.
That was a lot fast. Sorry.
No. I mean that's perfect. And now I'm realizing how much I don't know. So, okay, a hive. You're saying that they're all female? No.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes, yes. Now, the only males in the hive are drones. And so the amazing thing is, so a queen bee can decide if she wants to lay a fertilized egg or an unfertilized egg. She chooses. So every time she lowers her abdomen down into a cell to lay an egg, she decides, is this going to be an unfertilized egg or a fertilized egg?
Right.
Fertilized eggs always turn into worker bees or future queens. Unfertilized eggs will turn into drones, the males, which is amazing because it's unfertilized, right? I mean, usually
Right.
anything has to be fertilized in order for it to hatch, but she can lay an egg that has never been fertilized. It'll still develop into a bee. It'll just be a male or a drone. And so about 10% of the bees in a hive will be the males, the drones, and 90% will be worker bees, which are all undeveloped females. So yeah, it's mostly females. They do all the work. The drones just kind of hang out, eat honey, and then mate with the queen once in their lifetime outside the hive, flying around, and then the drones die after mating. So kind of nice to be a drone until you mate, and then it's all over.
That is pretty crazy, man.
Yeah,
Pretty crazy to
yeah,
even think about. So we were just talking about the process and the majority females that are
yeah,
in the hives, and
yeah.
that's ridiculous. Like I never for myself would have imagined that it would be like that, and to be able to have the ability to control, I guess, what goes on in the world of the hive is pretty ridiculous to think about, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
It's a whole world. Yeah.
you would say you've been doing, would you say that over the course of this process, I mean, have you mastered the craft? Would you say you're still learning? Like, I mean, like, it seems like there's
Oh
so
man,
much there, but
I'm still learning. I mean, that's one of the terrifying and difficult and wonderful things about the world of beekeeping. I mean, I've been doing it 20 years, almost constantly for 20 years,
right,
and there's mysteries to me every day. Things I don't understand. A beehive dies or succeeds, and I can't tell you why. And you talk to people that have been doing it for 60 years, and they'll tell you the exact same thing. I mean, there's so much we still have to learn, which makes it hard if you're trying to make a living off of it, but fascinating because you just never stop learning ever.
right. So what, I mean, this is obviously your passion, your goal, your love. I mean, what is next for Desert Creek? I mean, where do you see it going from here, man?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we there's about we've got about 6 different companies at this point, kind of under the Desert Creek and then the Texas Bee Supply heading. And so we continue to build each one of those. Each one does a different thing within the industry. And we continue to build each one and to start new businesses within the industry. And I have the most incredible team, and I'm not talking about our bees. But I mean, there's people that lead each one of those businesses that are phenomenal, and they are so good at what they do that I get to do things like this. I get
Right,
to
right.
have these conversations instead of, out working bees like all my crew is this morning. So yeah. So I think more of the same. I mean, we see some huge niches. It's a very niche industry that not a lot of attention is given to. And it's also an aging industry, which is true of all of ag. But I mean, the average, only 6% of beekeepers are under 40 years old.
Wow.
The vast majority are over 65 in the commercial world. And so there's just a lot of opportunity in this industry right now. And so we kind of continue to spin up new businesses and grow the existing ones in this niche industry.
Right. And that being said, I mean, so as it being an aging industry, I mean, I know that you guys are probably doing a lot of outreach, maybe a lot of recruiting there. I mean,
Yeah.
how, with the current situation and the way that the loss of bees is happening, how do you combat that, right? Like, in order to keep this, I mean, well, we have to keep it going, right? Otherwise we're gonna
Right.
be eating
Yes.
who knows what. But how do you bring people in and sustain this thing that is we're losing at a rapid rate, if you
Yeah.
will?
Yeah. I mean, there is hope. I mean, the thing that we have to do now more than ever is focus on bee health. And if 44% are going to die, the other 66% that survive have to be really, really good. Because then what we do is we take those that survive, and in the springtime, we take a really strong beehive, we divide it into two beehives, we give them new queen bees, and we grow our numbers back to recover. So you
Gotcha.
can kind of repopulate as long as that remaining percentage are really, really good bees. So it can be done. Um, it just takes a lot more work and dedication. We have to pay so much attention to our bees' health. And that's where consumers really come in, because a lot of people say, well, maybe I shouldn't eat honey. Maybe I shouldn't buy honey because the beekeepers are out there taking it from the bees, and I don't want them to do that. Maybe I should, maybe buying honey is hurting bees.
Right.
And the absolute opposite is true, in that beekeepers, for the most part, care very much about their bees' health. They are only taking the honey that the bees don't need. So they're, leaving like us. I mean, we leave a whole box of honey on our bees for them to eat. We take the surplus. And we can't afford to take care of our bees if people aren't out there buying honey. And so consumers buying honey and buying honey produced in the United States is of paramount importance if you want to keep the bees alive in the United States to pollinate your food. Because if everybody stops buying honey, we can't put diesel in our trucks, and we can't pay our crews, and we can't provide the care our bees need. We go out of business, and then our food supply is in real trouble.
Right. That makes sense, man. That really does. I mean, I would love to keep running and keep going on with this, man. This is so fascinating. But like, I know you have work, you have a
Hey,
lot
no
going
worries.
on, man.
I got all day.
But that being said, what can, outside of purchasing the honey, right? What can we do to help you guys? I mean, to really
Yeah.
spread the word. I don't know. Do we have to plant more flowers, plant more fruit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what can we
Yeah.
do?
Absolutely. There's so many things. I mean, I think buying honey from a small business, from a company that you've done the research on, and they're actual beekeepers and they're packing American honey, is so, so important. That's the number one thing folks can do. After that, stop spraying your yard so much. Stop using chemicals constantly in your lawn or in your field. If you live out in the country, don't mow your entire property like a lawn every week. Let some of those flowers bloom for the bees. That's helpful. Consider getting into beekeeping. I mean, if you've got the interest, get into beekeeping yourself on a hobby level, and that helps support the industry. You can always donate too. I mean, there's plenty of wonderful organizations out there. Project Apis M is a great one that takes contributions, and all the money goes directly to bee research. So you can donate money. That's always super helpful. So yeah, I mean, planting flowers that are bee friendly, not using pesticides and chemicals as frequently, getting into beekeeping, buying that domestically produced honey are all great things you can do to help the bee population.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, Blake, man, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of even speak with us.
Thank you.
My head is rattling here, man. 100%. But before we really get out of there, man, like where can we find you? Where can they support you and plug everything you got?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So we have a website, desertcreekhoney.com, that you can find our product with free shipping. Amazon Prime, our products are on Amazon Prime. If you're in Texas, we're in all the Walmart grocery stores, we're in all the HEBs, we're in Market Street, we're in, Central Market. I mean, most of the grocery store chains we're in. And then of course, if you're interested in getting into beekeeping, check out texasbeesupply.com. And Texas Bee Supply is our company where we educate folks in the world of beekeeping. So yeah, check us out. We'd love to meet you.
That's awesome, man. Blake, thank you so much, man. Desert Creek Honey, best honey in the world. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to throw that out there. You guys need to go and support, and all the links will be in the description below. So thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. Absolutely. Right. Thank you.
What's going on, guys? Hopefully you enjoyed the show. We appreciate you listening for sure. But we need your help.
Yeah, we need your help. We need you to like, comment, and subscribe so that we can continue to make great content for you guys.
Yeah, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe.
And it's right here on the screen. Everything you need.
Right there. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.
All right, take care.